Hello there, and welcome back to English in Advance, the podcast where we take your English skills to the next level, one conversation at a time. I am your host, Jessica, and I am so happy you are here with me today. It is a beautiful day to learn something new, isn't it? Today we have a very special episode designed specifically for intermediate learners, those of you at the B1 and B2 levels who are looking to bridge the gap between understanding simple textbook English and understanding the real, natural flow of the language. We are going to have a long, relaxing, and deeply educational session together. So I want you to find a comfortable spot, maybe grab a cup of tea or coffee, and get ready to immerse yourself in the English language. Before we dive into today's content, I want to remind you why you are here. Learning a language is not just about memorizing grammar rules or staring at vocabulary lists. It is about connection. It is about understanding the subtle nuances, the feelings, and the culture behind the words. That is exactly what we focus on here at English in Advance. If you are new to the channel, please make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a chance to practice with me. And if you have been with us for a while, thank you so much for your continued support. Now let's get started. Today we are going to explore a topic that is incredibly important for everyday life, yet it is often overlooked in traditional classrooms. We are going to talk about the art of small talk and how to navigate social situations with confidence. Have you ever found yourself standing in a lift or waiting in a queue at a coffee shop and someone starts talking to you, but you freeze? You know the words, but you do not know how to put them together naturally. Well, my goal today is to make sure that never happens again. We are going to break down the psychology of small talk, learn some incredibly useful phrases, and practice listening to the rhythm of natural speech. Let's start by understanding what small talk really is. Many students think small talk is meaningless or a waste of time. They want to jump straight into deep philosophical debates or business negotiations. But here's the truth. Small talk is the gateway to deeper connection. It is the social lubricant that makes interactions smooth. In English-speaking cultures, especially in the UK and the US, small talk is a sign of politeness. It acknowledges the other person's presence. It says, "I see you and I am friendly." So the first step to mastering this is changing your mindset. Do not think of it as trivial. Think of it as an opportunity. Now, let's look at the most common topic for small talk. You guessed it, the weather. It is the classic cliché. We always talk about the weather, but why? Because it is safe, it is neutral, it affects everyone. It is very hard to offend someone by talking about the rain or the sunshine. But here is where intermediate learners often struggle. They say things like, "The weather is good today." While this is grammatically correct, it sounds a bit robotic. It sounds like a sentence from a textbook. A native speaker would more likely say, "It is absolutely gorgeous out there today, isn't it?" Or, "I cannot believe how much it is raining." Notice the difference. The native speaker uses stronger adjectives like gorgeous or emphasizes the feeling with phrases like, "I cannot believe." They also use something called question tags. You will hear these constantly. Question tags are those little additions at the end of a sentence, like "isn't it?" or "doesn't it?" They turn a statement into a conversation starter. If I say, "It is cold today," the conversation might stop there. But if I say, "It is cold today, isn't it?" I am inviting you to respond. I am inviting you to agree or disagree. This is a crucial tool for your listening practice. Listen for those tags. They usually follow the auxiliary verb used in the sentence. If I say, "You are listening to this podcast, aren't you?" the tag matches the verb are. Let's practice this a bit right now. I want you to listen to a few statements and think about how you would add a tag. I will say the statement, pause for a moment, and then give you the correct tag. Ready? Let's try the first one. It is a beautiful day. The correct tag would be, isn't it? So, it is a beautiful day, isn't it? Here is another one. You are studying English. The tag is, aren't you? You are studying English, aren't you? One more. The coffee here tastes good. Here we use the auxiliary does because tastes is in the present simple tense. So the coffee here tastes good, doesn't it? This structure is small but powerful. It transforms you from a passive listener into an active participant in the conversation. Moving on from the weather, another huge topic for small talk is travel and commuting. Since many of us spend a lot of time getting from point A to point B, it is a natural thing to discuss. You might hear someone say, "Did you get stuck in that traffic on the highway?" Or, "The trains are running late again." Typical. These phrases show empathy. They show that you are sharing a common experience. If you are on a bus or a train and someone asks you about your journey, do not just say, "It is fine." Try to expand. You could say, "It was actually quite smooth today, surprisingly." Or, "To be honest, it was a bit of a nightmare. Took me an hour longer than usual." See how we use words like surprisingly or to be honest? These are called discourse markers. They are the glue that holds our conversations together. They tell the listener about your attitude toward what you are saying. When you say to be honest, you are signaling that you are about to share a personal or slightly negative opinion. When you say actually, you are often correcting a misconception or adding unexpected information. For example, if someone asks, "Was the traffic bad?" and it wasn't, you might say, "Actually, it was quite clear." Listening for these discourse markers will help you understand the speaker's true intention. It adds flavor to the language. Without them, English sounds flat. Let's imagine a scenario. You're at a coffee shop. You are waiting for your latte. The person next to you sighs and looks at their watch. They turn to you and say, "I have been waiting for 20 minutes. How would you respond? A beginner might say, "Yes, it is busy." But an intermediate learner aiming for B2 level should be able to express empathy. You could say, "I know what you mean. The queue is out the door today." Or maybe, "Yeah, it looks like everyone had the same idea this morning." This validates their frustration without being negative. It builds rapport. Rapport is that feeling of connection and understanding with another person. Now, I want to shift gears a little bit. We've talked about what to say, but listening is just as important, perhaps even more so. In conversation, you spend about 50% of the time listening. But active listening in a second language is exhausting. Your brain is working overtime to decode the sounds, the vocabulary, and the grammar all at once. So how can you be a better listener? You need to learn how to listen for the gist or the general idea before you worry about every single word. Let's do a little listening exercise. I am going to describe a situation using some idioms and phrasal verbs that you might not know. Do not panic. Do not reach for your dictionary. Just listen. Try to understand the context. So, last weekend, my friend Sarah and I decided to go to this new restaurant downtown. We had been looking forward to it for ages. But when we got there, the place was packed. We didn't have a reservation, so we were essentially out of luck. We were about to leave when the manager spotted us. He told us to hang tight for a few minutes. Sure enough, a table opened up. We sat down and the food was out of this world. We ended up chatting for hours and losing track of time. It was a blast. Okay, let's break that down. I used the phrase looking forward to it. This means we were excited about it. I said the place was packed. This means it was very crowded. I said we were out of luck. This means we were unfortunate or things didn't go our way. The manager told us to hang tight. This is an idiom meaning to wait patiently. The food was out of this world, meaning it was delicious, amazing. And finally, it was a blast. This means it was a lot of fun. Did you understand those idioms in context? Even if you didn't know the exact meaning, you probably guessed that the ending was happy because we stayed. The food was good, and we chatted for hours. This is the key to improving your listening. Do not get stuck on the vocabulary you do not know. Focus on the words you do know and use the context to fill in the blanks. The tone of my voice also helps. When I said the place was packed, my voice sounded a bit stressed. When I said the food was out of this world, my voice sounded happy and enthusiastic. Let's talk about another aspect of listening: linking words. Native speakers do not speak word by word. We link words together to create a flow. This is why English can sometimes sound fast. For example, if I say I saw it, I don't say I saw it. I say I saw it. The double sound at the end of saw connects to the I sound at the start of it. Or think about the phrase wake up. We say wake up. It almost sounds like one word. This is called connected speech. If you try to listen for every individual word, you will get lost. You have to listen for the groups of words. This is something you can practice on your own. Take a sentence like I have to go. A native speaker often shortens this to I've gotta go, or even I gotta go. The have to changes to hafta. If you are listening for the clear pronunciation of have and to, you might miss it. So here's a challenge for you. Next time you watch a movie or listen to a podcast, try to ignore the grammar for a moment and just listen to the music of the language. Listen to how the pitch goes up and down. In English, our intonation carries a lot of meaning. If I say, "You're going to the store," with my voice going up at the end, it is a question. "You're going to the store?" If I say it with my voice going down, it is a statement. "You're going to the store." If I say it with a flat tone, it might sound bored or sarcastic. Understanding intonation is like reading between the lines. It tells you the emotion behind the words. Let's go back to our topic of socializing. We have covered small talk, but what about when the conversation gets a bit deeper? What about when you want to express your opinion? This is where many intermediate learners hesitate. You might be afraid of making a mistake or offending someone, but expressing your opinion is vital for B2 level English. The key is to use what we call softeners. Direct opinions can sometimes sound rude in English. For example, imagine someone asks you, "What did you think of the movie?" If you hated it, you wouldn't say, "It was terrible." That is too direct. Instead, you would say, "To be honest, I didn't really enjoy it," or "It wasn't really my cup of tea." This phrase, "not my cup of tea," is a brilliant idiom. It means it wasn't to your taste, but it doesn't insult the person who liked it. It softens the blow. Another way to soften your opinion is to use phrases like "I think" or "it seems to me." Compare these two sentences. "This is wrong" versus "I think this might be wrong." The second one is much more polite and diplomatic. It leaves room for discussion. Let's practice agreeing and disagreeing. This is a huge part of conversation. When you agree with someone, you can simply say exactly or absolutely, but you can also use longer phrases like, I could not agree more. That is a strong agreement. When you disagree, you have to be careful. You don't just say, you are wrong. You say, I see what you mean, but I think, or. That is an interesting point, however. Using the word however is much more formal and polite than using but. It shows you respect their opinion even if you don't share it. Now I want to tell you a little story to help you practice your listening comprehension. This story contains some narrative tenses: past simple, past continuous, and past perfect. I want you to visualize the scene in your head. Ready? A few years ago, I was traveling in Japan. I had always wanted to see the cherry blossoms in spring. One morning, I woke up very early because I had read that the best parks get crowded quickly. I took a train to a famous garden in Kyoto. While I was walking through the park, I noticed an old man sitting on a bench. He was feeding some birds. He looked up and smiled at me. He gestured for me to sit down. I was a bit nervous because my Japanese was not very good, but I sat down anyway. We sat there for about 10 minutes in silence. It wasn't an awkward silence. It was peaceful. Suddenly, he pointed at a tree and said one word in English: beautiful. I looked at the tree. The sun was hitting the pink flowers just right. It was breathtaking. I smiled and nodded. We didn't need words to share that moment. It taught me that sometimes communication is about presence, not just language. That story illustrates a few things. First, notice the use of the past continuous for background actions. I was traveling, I was walking, he was feeding. These set the scene. Then we have the past simple for the main events. I woke up, I took a train, he pointed. And we have the past perfect for things that happened before the main story. I had always wanted, I had read. This structure gives depth to your storytelling. If you want to tell good stories in English, you need to master these 3 tenses and how they work together. Also, did you notice the vocabulary? I used words like breathtaking, awkward, gestures. These are strong B2 level words. Awkward is a very useful word. It describes a situation where you feel uncomfortable or embarrassed. Like when you wave at someone who wasn't actually waving at you. That is awkward. Breathtaking means something is so beautiful it takes your breath away. It is much stronger than just saying, very beautiful. Let's talk about the concept of filler words. Every language has them. In English, we use words like, and well. Many students think using filler words is bad. They think it makes them sound uneducated. Actually, it is the opposite. Native speakers use fillers all the time to keep the rhythm of speech. They give the speaker time to think. If you speak in perfectly formed sentences without any pauses, you might actually sound a bit robotic. Instead of staying silent when you are thinking, use fillers. If someone asks you a difficult question, do not just stand there. Say, well, let me think about that. Or, that is a good question. These phrases buy you time. Is another common filler. For example, it was, a really difficult decision. It softens the statement and invites the listener to empathize. The word like is very common among younger speakers, but use it sparingly. It can become a bad habit if you use it in every sentence. But saying, it was like 5 kilometers away is very natural in spoken English. So do not be afraid of silence, but learn to fill it naturally. Now let's move on to a slightly more formal aspect of listening, understanding directions and instructions. This is a practical skill you will definitely need. Whether you are traveling or just trying to assemble furniture, listening to instructions requires focus. The biggest challenge here is often the vocabulary of movement and position. Prepositions like across from, in between, around the corner, and behind can be confusing. Imagine you are in a new city and you ask for directions to the museum. You might hear this: go straight for 2 blocks, then take a left at the traffic lights. Walk past the library and you will see the museum on your right, just across from the park. You can't miss it. That phrase, "you can't miss it," is a classic native speaker phrase used to reassure you that the building is obvious. When listening to directions, it helps to visualize a map in your head. Listen for the landmarks. Landmarks are important buildings or features like a bank, a church, or a big tree. If you miss the specific street name, the landmarks will save you. And do not be afraid to check understanding. You can say, "So, I go straight, then left at the lights?" Paraphrasing back to the speaker shows you were listening and confirms the information. It is a very smart strategy. Let's switch gears again and talk about listening for attitude. Sometimes what people say is not exactly what they mean. This is sarcasm. Sarcasm is a form of humor where you say the opposite of what you mean, usually with a specific tone of voice. For example, if it starts raining heavily during a picnic, someone might look up and say, "Oh, lovely weather we are having." The words say the weather is lovely, but the tone is flat or annoyed, and the context tells you they mean the opposite. Understanding sarcasm requires you to listen to the stress. In the sentence, "Oh, lovely weather we are having," the speaker will stress the word lovely. Lovely. The stress is often exaggerated. Another example. If you spill coffee on your shirt, a friend might say, "Nice one, Jessica." They do not mean you did a good job, they are teasing you. Sarcasm is tricky, but once you get the hang of it, it makes watching sitcoms and talking to friends much more enjoyable. It adds a layer of wit to the language. Now, I want to focus on one specific area that many of you have asked about: phrasal verbs. I know, everyone hates phrasal verbs. They are difficult because the meaning often changes completely when you add a small word like up, down, or off. But phrasal verbs are the heartbeat of spoken English. We use them constantly. If you want to understand native speakers, you cannot avoid them. Let's look at the verb run. Simple, right? But if I say run into someone, that means I met them by accident. If I say run out of something, that means I have none left. I ran out of milk. If I say run over something, that means I drove over it, usually accidentally. These meanings are not obvious. You have to learn them like vocabulary items. Here is a tip for learning phrasal verbs. Do not try to memorize long lists. It is boring and ineffective. Learn them in context. Learn a story. Imagine this scenario. You wake up late. You have to get up quickly. You have to rush to the bathroom to wash up. You realize you ran out of toothpaste. You go to the kitchen to make breakfast, but the toaster gives up the ghost, which is an idiom meaning it broke. You end up having to eat out at a cafe. See? In that little story, we had get up, wash up, run out, give up, eat out. It is much easier to remember them as part of a narrative. Let's do a quick practice with some common phrasal verbs for social situations. The verb to turn up. This means to arrive or appear. If I say he turned up late, it means he arrived late. The verb to let down. This means to disappoint. Don't let me down means don't disappoint me. The verb to put off. This means to postpone or delay. We put off the meeting. Try to use one of these in a sentence today. Write it down or say it out loud. Practice makes perfect. Speaking of practice, let's talk about how you can practice listening on your own. This podcast is a great start, but you need variety. I recommend listening to things that are slightly above your level. If it is too easy, you aren't learning. If it is too hard, you will get frustrated. That is the sweet spot, the B2 zone. Also, listen to different accents. I am speaking with a fairly clear, standard accent right now. But in the real world, you will hear British, American, Australian, Irish, Scottish, and non-native English speakers from all over the world. A great way to practice is to listen to a short clip, maybe 1 minute long. Listen once for the general idea. Listen a second time for specific details. Listen a third time while reading the transcript if there is one. Then try to summarize what you heard in your own words. This forces your brain to process the information, not just hear it. Active engagement is key. Just having the radio on in the background while you clean the house is helpful, but it is not as effective as focused listening. I also want to encourage you to be patient with yourself. Learning a language is a marathon, not a sprint. There will be days when you feel like you are not improving. You will hear a conversation and understand nothing. This is normal. It happens to everyone. On those days, do not give up. Switch to something easier for a while to rebuild your confidence. Remember why you started learning English. Maybe it is for your job, for travel, or to watch movies without subtitles. Keep that goal in mind. Let's explore the topic of cultural differences in communication a bit more. This is fascinating. In some cultures, silence is very uncomfortable. In others, silence is a sign of respect and thoughtfulness. In Western English-speaking cultures, we tend to fill silence. If there is a pause in a conversation, we call it an awkward silence. We feel the need to speak. This is why we use small talk. It fills the space. Another cultural aspect is eye contact. In many English-speaking countries, eye contact is important. It shows you are listening and being honest. If you look away too much, it might seem like you are hiding something or you are not interested. However, staring too intensely can be aggressive. It is a balance. When you are listening to someone, look at them. When you are thinking, it is okay to look away briefly. These nonverbal cues are part of the language too. Let's circle back to vocabulary building. We talked about idioms and phrasal verbs, but what about collocations? Collocations are words that naturally go together. They just sound right. For example, we say fast food, not quick food. We say take a shower, not make a shower. We say heavy rain, not strong rain. Knowing collocations makes your English sound much more natural. If you use the wrong collocation, people will understand you, but it signals that you are not a native speaker. For instance, you might say, I did a mistake. Everyone understands that, but the correct collocation is I made a mistake. Why? There is no logic to it. It is just convention. So, when you learn a new word, do not just learn the word in isolation. Learn the words that go with it. Learn the whole chunk. Write down, make a mistake. This will help your listening too, because you will start hearing these chunks. You won't just hear the word mistake. You will hear the phrase, make a mistake. It makes processing faster. Now let's have a little storytelling moment to test your understanding of description and adjectives. I want you to paint a picture in your mind. I am going to describe a person. She was a tall woman with a slender build. She had shoulder-length, wavy auburn hair that bounced as she walked. She was wearing a beige trench coat and a bright red scarf that stood out against the gray winter sky. Her face was angular, with high cheekbones and piercing green eyes. She walked with a confident stride, looking straight ahead, clutching a leather briefcase in her right hand. She didn't look like someone who liked to be bothered, but she had a small, mysterious smile playing on her lips. In that description, I used a lot of specific adjectives: slender, auburn, angular, piercing. These are descriptive words that give life to the image. If I just said, she was tall with brown hair and green eyes, the image is boring. To reach a higher level of English, you need to move beyond basic adjectives. Instead of big, use huge, massive, or enormous. Instead of small, use tiny, miniature, or petite. Instead of pretty, use stunning, gorgeous, or elegant. This adds color to your vocabulary palette. Think about your own appearance or the appearance of someone you know. How would you describe them? Try to use at least 3 specific adjectives. Maybe your friend has curly hair. Is it tightly curled or loosely curled? Is it jet black or honey blonde? Paying attention to these details in your own language will help you translate them into English. Let's talk about the future. Talking about the future in English can be confusing because we have so many ways to do it. Will, going to, present continuous, present simple. How do you know which one to use? Listening to how native speakers use them is the best way to learn. If I say, look at those clouds, it is going to rain, I am using going to for a prediction based on present evidence. I can see the clouds. If I say, I will help you with that bag, I am using will for a spontaneous decision made at the moment of speaking. If I say, I am flying to Paris next week, I am using the present continuous for a fixed arrangement, something already planned and ticketed. When you listen to podcasts or watch TV, pay attention to the future forms. You will start to hear the nuances. Oh, I forgot my wallet. Don't worry, I will pay for lunch. That is a spontaneous offer. So we are meeting at 5, right? That is a confirmation of an arrangement. These small distinctions matter. They show that you understand the subtle mechanics of the language. Now, I want to simulate a real-world listening task. Imagine you are at an airport. You hear an announcement. This is often one of the most difficult listening tasks because the audio quality might be bad, there is echo, and people are talking. Listen carefully to this simulated announcement. Attention passengers on flight BA457 to London Heathrow. Due to adverse weather conditions in the London area, your flight has been delayed. The new estimated departure time is 16:30 hours local time. We apologize for any inconvenience this may cause. Please proceed to gate number 12 where refreshments will be provided. Thank you for your patience. Okay, let's check what you heard. What was the flight number? BA457. Where is it going? London Heathrow. Why is it delayed? Adverse weather conditions. That is a fancy way of saying bad weather. What is the new time? 16:30. Remember, airports use the 24-hour clock. 16:30 is 4:30 in the afternoon. Where should passengers go? Gate 12. And what will be provided? Refreshments, meaning drinks and snacks. Airport announcements are full of formal language. Adverse instead of bad. Proceed instead of go. Estimated departure time instead of leaving time. If you can understand this formal register, you are doing very well. This is B2 level competency. It involves understanding formal vocabulary and specific details quickly. Let's move on to something a bit more relaxing. Let's talk about hobbies and free time. This is a very common conversation topic. When someone asks, "What do you do in your free time?" they are asking about your interests. Many learners answer with short sentences. "I like reading." "I like football." To make the conversation better, you should expand. Instead of just saying, "I like reading," say, "I am a bit of a bookworm. I love getting lost in a good mystery novel on the weekends." Bookworm is an idiom for someone who loves reading. Getting lost in a book is a beautiful phrase that implies deep immersion. These phrases make you sound more engaged with the language. If you like sports, instead of saying, "I like football," say, "I am a huge football fan. I try to catch every game my team plays." To catch a game means to watch it. If you like music, say, "I am really into jazz at the moment. I go to live gigs whenever I can." Being into something is a casual way of saying you are interested in it. A gig is a casual word for a concert. Notice how we use expressions to show intensity. We don't just like things. We are huge fans. We are passionate about. We are really into. This emotional vocabulary is key for intermediate learners. It moves you from stating facts to expressing feelings. I want to talk about a very specific listening skill now. This is called inference. Inference is when you understand something that is not directly said. You have to read between the lines. This is often tested in exams like IELTS or TOEFL. For example, imagine a man and a woman are talking. Woman: "Are you going to the company dinner tonight?" Man: "I have a report that is due first thing in the morning." Now, the man didn't say no, but what does he mean? He means he cannot go to the dinner because he has to work. He implies the answer. You have to make a logical deduction based on the context. This is high-level listening. It requires you to understand the implications of words, not just the definitions. Another example. Speaker A: "Did you enjoy the presentation?" Speaker B: "Well, the speaker certainly had a lot of slides." Speaker B didn't say it was good or bad, but the tone and the comment. "Well, the speaker certainly had a lot of slides," suggests that maybe it was boring or too long. It is a subtle criticism. If you only listen for the word slides, you miss the point. You have to listen for the tone and the hesitation. The word "well" at the beginning is a huge clue. It often signals that a negative or evasive answer is coming. These nuances take time to master. You have to listen to a lot of real, unscripted conversations to get a feel for them. That is why podcasts, interviews, and talk shows are such good resources. They contain natural hesitations, interruptions, and inferences. Let's do a quick recap of some of the key vocabulary we have learned today. We talked about small talk and being a social lubricant. We discussed question tags like "isn't it" and "aren't you." We learned idioms like "break the ice," "not my cup of tea," "piece of cake," and "a blast." We covered phrasal verbs like "run into," "turn up," and "put off." We looked at collocations like "make a mistake" and "heavy rain." We practiced listening for gist, detail, and inference. That is a lot of content. I hope you are feeling inspired. Remember that your English journey is unique. Do not compare yourself to others. Some people learn faster than others, and that is okay. The important thing is consistency. Even 10 minutes of listening practice a day is better than 3 hours once a month. Make it a habit. Integrate English into your life. Change your phone settings to English. Watch the news in English. Listen to English songs and try to understand the lyrics. Surround yourself with the language. Now, I want to shift our focus to something a little more practical, something that many of you have asked about in the comments and emails. We are going to talk about health, visiting the doctor, and describing how we feel. This is a topic that often causes anxiety for learners because it involves specific vocabulary and the pressure of explaining a personal problem to a professional. But do not worry, by the end of this section, you will feel much more confident. Let's imagine you are not feeling well. It happens to the best of us. Maybe you have a headache or a stomach ache, or you just feel tired all the time. In your native language, you know exactly how to describe this. But in English, you might freeze. You might just say, "My head hurts." And while that is correct, it is very basic. At a B2 level, we want to be more precise. We want to describe the type of pain. Is it a sharp pain? Is it a dull ache? Is it a throbbing sensation? Think about the difference. A sharp pain is sudden and intense, like a needle. A dull ache is a continuous, low-level pain, annoying but not overwhelming. And throbbing? That means it beats like a drum, usually associated with bad headaches or infections. Using these adjectives helps the doctor understand you better. So instead of saying, "I have a bad headache," you can say, "I have a splitting headache that won't go away." Splitting is a strong adjective often used for very severe headaches. It creates a vivid image. Now, let's listen to a typical scenario at the doctor's office. I want you to imagine you are sitting in the waiting room. Your name is called. You walk in. The doctor asks, "So, what seems to be the problem today?" Notice the phrase, "what seems to be the problem." It is a polite, open-ended way to start the consultation. You need to explain your symptoms. You might say, "Well, doctor, for the past few days I have been feeling under the weather." This idiom, "under the weather," is a very common way to say you are sick or not feeling your best. It is a great phrase to add to your repertoire. You can continue, "I have had this nagging cough, and I feel a bit dizzy when I stand up too quickly." Listen to the grammar there. I have had. We use the present perfect tense here because the symptom started in the past and is still continuing now. This is a crucial distinction. If you say, "I had a cough," the doctor might think it is gone. But if you say, "I have had a cough for 3 days," they know it is an ongoing issue. Paying attention to these tenses can change the diagnosis. The doctor will likely ask follow-up questions. They might ask, "Are you on any medication?" This means, "Are you taking any pills or medicine right now?" Or they might ask, "Do you have any allergies?" It is important to know the names of any medicine you are allergic to, like penicillin, for example. The doctor might examine you. They might say, "I am just going to listen to your chest. Take a deep breath." These are instructions. Listening to instructions in a medical context is vital. If you don't understand, do not be afraid to say, "Could you say that again, please?" Or, "I didn't quite catch that." Your health is more important than pretending to understand. After the examination, the doctor will give you advice. They might say, "I am going to prescribe some antibiotics." To prescribe means to write a prescription for medicine. They might tell you to take it easy for a few days. To take it easy means to rest and avoid stress. They might say, "Make sure to stay hydrated." Hydrated means drinking enough water. These phrases, "take it easy" and "stay hydrated," are common collocations. We say stay hydrated, not drink hydrated. Learning these chunks of language helps you sound natural. Now let's move from physical health to mental well-being, or just general lifestyle? In the modern world, stress is a huge topic. Do you know how to talk about stress in English? Many students say, "I am very stressful." This is a common mistake. Stress is a noun or a verb. If you feel it, you are stressed. The adjective ending is ed. So you say, "I am stressed out," or "I am feeling a lot of pressure." If you say "I am stressful," it means you are causing stress to other people, which is probably not what you mean. Let's expand your vocabulary for emotions. At B1 level, you know happy, sad, angry. At B2 level, we want more nuance. Instead of happy, try delighted, thrilled, or content. Instead of sad, try miserable, down, or heartbroken. Instead of angry, try furious, irritated, or frustrated. These words paint a clearer picture. For example, if you are waiting for a bus that is late, you might be annoyed. If someone steals your wallet, you would be furious. The intensity of the word matches the situation. Think about the word frustrated. This is a very useful word. It describes that feeling when you are trying to do something, but something is stopping you. Like when you are learning English and you can't remember a word you know, that feeling is frustration. You can say, "I find it really frustrating when I can't express myself properly." This is a high-quality sentence that expresses a complex emotion. Let's talk about sentence stress and how it changes the meaning. This is a listening skill. English is a stress-timed language. This means the rhythm depends on the stressed syllables. The words that carry the most meaning are spoken louder and longer. Listen to this sentence. "I didn't say you stole the money." Depending on where I put the stress, the meaning changes completely. If I say, "I didn't say you stole the money," stressing I, it implies that someone else said it but not me. If I say, "I didn't say you stole the money," stressing say, it implies I might have written it or hinted it, but I didn't say it out loud. If I say, "I didn't say you stole the money," stressing you, it implies I said someone else stole it. If I say, "I didn't say you stole the money," stressing stole, it implies maybe you borrowed it or lost it, but you didn't steal it. Isn't that fascinating? Just one word changing the entire context. As a listener, you have to tune your ears to pick up on that stress. It helps you understand what the speaker is really thinking. Now, I want to tell you a story about a misunderstanding I once had. This story is great for listening to narrative tenses and also for understanding how cultural differences can cause confusion. A few years ago, I invited a new colleague over for dinner. I told him to come around 7 p.m. I told him, "Just bring yourself." In my culture, and in many English-speaking cultures, when we say "bring yourself," we mean you don't need to bring food or drinks. We have everything covered. It is a polite way to say, "Don't worry about contributing." However, my colleague was from a different culture where it is considered rude to arrive empty-handed. He didn't understand the phrase "bring yourself" literally. He thought I meant just come. Don't bring a friend. So, he arrived alone, which was correct, but he also brought a very expensive bottle of wine. When he handed it to me, I was surprised. I said, "Oh, you really didn't have to bring anything." He looked confused. He said, "But I thought you said, 'bring yourself.'" I realized then that the phrase was ambiguous to him. We laughed about it later, but it was a classic case of language versus culture. In that story, notice the vocabulary. Empty-handed means arriving without a gift. Ambiguous means something that can be interpreted in more than one way. Confusion, surprised, realized. These are all words we use to tell stories about social interactions. Try to use the phrase empty-handed in a sentence this week. For example, I went to the birthday party empty-handed because I forgot to buy a gift. Let's transition to another very practical skill: making complaints. We all have to complain sometimes. Maybe your food is cold in a restaurant. Maybe your hotel room is dirty. Maybe the internet is not working. Complaining in English requires a balance. You want to be firm so the problem is fixed, but you also want to be polite so people want to help you. Shouting or being rude usually makes the situation worse. The secret to polite complaints is the use of the past tense and modal verbs. Compare these two sentences. You gave me the wrong order. That is direct and accusatory. It sounds like you are attacking the waiter. Now listen to this. I think there might be a mistake with my order. This uses the modal verb might to soften the statement. Or, I was given the wrong order. This uses the passive voice. It focuses on the action, not the person. It is less personal. It sounds much better. Another great strategy is to start with a positive buffer. Instead of jumping straight into the complaint, say something nice first. For example, "Excuse me, the soup is delicious, but I think my main course is a bit cold. Could you please heat it up for me?" See the structure? Positive comment, then the problem, then a polite request using could you. This is the formula for a successful complaint. It is much more effective than saying, "This is cold. Take it back." Let's practice some phrases for this. If you are in a hotel and the air conditioning isn't working, you call the front desk. You say, "Hello, I am having a bit of trouble with the air conditioning in my room. It doesn't seem to be working. Could you send someone to take a look?" This phrase, "having a bit of trouble," is very polite. It minimizes the problem, which is a very British way of speaking, but it works well in international contexts too. And sending someone to take a look is a standard phrase for requesting maintenance. Now let's change the scene completely. Let's talk about hypothetical situations. This is the realm of conditionals, specifically the second and third conditional. This is a big step up from B1 to B2. We use these to talk about things that are not real or things that didn't happen. The second conditional is for imaginary situations in the present or future. The structure is if plus past simple, then would plus verb. For example, if I won the lottery, I would travel the world. Notice I didn't win the lottery. It is imaginary. We use won, the past tense, even though we are talking about the future. This can be confusing. But remember, the past tense in the if clause indicates distance from reality, not distance in time. Why is this useful for listening? Because people use it all the time to express wishes. I wish I had more time. This is essentially a second conditional structure without the if clause. It implies if I had more time, I would do more things. When you hear someone say, "I wish," listen for what follows. I wish I knew the answer. It means I don't know the answer. I wish I was taller. It means I am not tall. It is a window into the speaker's desires and regrets. Speaking of regrets, let's look at the third conditional. This is for the past. We use it to talk about things that didn't happen and the result of those imaginary changes. The structure is if plus past perfect, then would have plus past participle. It sounds complicated, but let's look at an example. If I had known you were coming, I would have baked a cake. This is a classic line. What does it mean? It means I didn't know you were coming, so I didn't bake a cake. We are imagining a different past. You will hear this in movies and books constantly. Characters often dwell on the past. If I hadn't stayed up so late, I wouldn't have missed the train. This means I did stay up late and I did miss the train. It expresses regret. When you are listening, listen for the chunk would have. It is often pronounced would've, sounding like would've. Native speakers rarely say I would have gone. They say I would have gone. If you hear that sound, you know a conditional is happening. Let's try a little exercise. I will give you a situation, and I want you to think about the third conditional. Imagine you forgot your umbrella and it rained and you got wet. How do we express this? If I had brought my umbrella, I wouldn't have gotten wet. Or, if I hadn't forgotten my umbrella, I would have stayed dry. It takes some mental gymnastics, but it is excellent practice for your brain. Let's move on to a lighter topic. Let's talk about entertainment and giving reviews. Have you ever watched a movie and wanted to tell your friends about it? At the B1 level, you might say, "It was good. It was funny." At B2, we want to describe why it was good. We need to talk about the plot, the acting, the special effects, and the ending, without giving away spoilers, of course. Spoilers are details that ruin the surprise of the story. You might say, the plot was a bit predictable, but the acting was superb. Predictable means you could guess what would happen next. Superb means excellent. Or you might say, it was a gripping thriller from start to finish. Gripping means it held your attention completely, like a tight grip. If a movie is boring, you can say it was dull or it dragged on. To drag on means to continue for too long without anything interesting happening. When giving an opinion about a book or movie, it is common to use phrases like, "I was on the edge of my seat." This means you were very excited or nervous about what would happen next. Or, "I couldn't put it down," referring to a book. This means it was so interesting you didn't want to stop reading. These idioms are much more colorful than just saying, "It was interesting." Let's talk about the word interesting for a moment. It is a safe word, but it can be dangerous. Sometimes, if someone asks, "How was the date?" and you say, "It was interesting." With a hesitation, it implies it was bad or weird. The tone controls the meaning. If you say, "That is an interesting point," it sounds genuine. But if you say he has an interesting face, it might mean he is ugly. Context and tone are everything. Be careful with interesting. Now, I want to focus on connected speech again, specifically elision. This is when sounds disappear. We mentioned this earlier, but it is so important. A classic example is the word comfortable. You might try to pronounce every syllable, comfortable, but a native speaker says comfortable. The middle sounds get swallowed. We do the same with temperature. We say temperature. We drop the middle syllable. Vegetable becomes vegetable. If you try to listen for the full pronunciation, you might not recognize the word. You have to listen for the squashed version. This is why learning pronunciation helps your listening. If you know how we say it, you will hear it. Let's do a quick travel scenario. You are at a train station in London. You need to buy a ticket. The station is noisy. You approach the counter. You say, "Could I have a return ticket to Oxford, please?" The clerk might ask, "Peak or off-peak?" Do you know what this means? Peak time is when the trains are busy, usually during rush hour, the time people go to and from work. Off-peak is cheaper, usually after the morning rush or during the day. If you don't know this vocabulary, you might buy the wrong ticket. Listening for these specific terms is crucial when traveling. The clerk might speak fast. They might say, "That will be £35, platform 4. Change at reading." Let's break that down. Platform 4 is where the train is. Change at Reading means you have to get off the train at Reading Station and get on a different one. If you miss the word change, you will end up in the wrong place. So when traveling, listen for command verbs like change, wait, board, and exit. Let's discuss the language of persuasion. Sometimes we need to convince someone to do something. Maybe you want to convince your friend to go to a specific restaurant. You don't just say, "Let's go there." You use persuasive language. You might say, "You are going to love this place. The atmosphere is amazing." Or, "Trust me, it has the best pizza in town." Trust me is a powerful phrase to build confidence in your suggestion. You can also use rhetorical questions. Questions that don't need an answer, but make the person think. "Why don't we try that new place downtown?" It sounds like a suggestion, but it is phrased as a question. It feels less aggressive. Or, "Wouldn't it be nice to sit by the river?" You are painting a picture of the result. Persuasion is about selling the benefit. Now let's touch on the topic of numbers and statistics. Listening to numbers can be very difficult because they are said quickly, especially things like prices and dates. But one area that confuses learners is large numbers. In English, we use commas to separate thousands. 1,000 is one followed by 3 zeros. We say numbers in groups. For example, 1,500 is 1,500. But often, we say 1,500. This is very common. For 2,400, we can say 2,400 or 2,400. Listening for the hundred pattern is important. With money, we have two parts. The pounds or dollars and the pence or cents. If something costs £3.50, we say £3.50. We don't usually say pence. If it is £3.05, we say £3.05. The zero is pronounced O. If you hear a phone number, double digits are common. 555-8800. O. We say 555-8800. If you aren't expecting double, you might get confused. So listen for words like double and triple. Let's go back to storytelling. I want to tell you a short anecdote that uses the past perfect continuous tense. This is a rare but beautiful tense. It describes an action that was ongoing in the past before another action happened. Listen to this. Yesterday, I was exhausted. I had been working on the project for 10 hours straight when the computer finally crashed. The sentence I had been working sets the background. It shows duration. It explains why I was exhausted. It adds depth. If I just said I worked on the project, it doesn't sound as tiring. When you tell stories, try to use this structure to give reasons. He was out of breath because he had been running. The ground was wet because it had been raining. It connects cause and effect in the past. As we continue this podcast, I want to remind you that your listening skills are like a muscle. You have to exercise them. You cannot passively listen. You have to actively predict what is coming next. When you are listening to me right now, try to guess what word I am going to say next, or try to guess what topic I will switch to. Prediction is a key skill for B2 learners. If I say I opened the fridge and saw there was no milk, you can predict I might say, I went to the store. Your brain is constantly filling in gaps. The more you know about the world and the culture, the better you can predict. Let's talk about something fun. Slang. Slang is informal language that changes quickly. It is often specific to a generation. Right now, you might hear young people saying words like vibes or chill. If someone says, "This place has good vibes," it means the atmosphere is good. If they say, "just chill," it means relax. While slang is fun, be careful using it. It might sound strange if you use it in a business meeting. However, you need to understand it when you hear it in songs or movies. A very common slang term right now is ghosting. This comes from dating apps. If you ghost someone, you stop communicating with them suddenly, without explanation. You just disappear like a ghost. It is now used in other contexts too. My boss ghosted me after the interview means he never called back. It is a vivid way to describe a frustrating situation. We've covered so much ground today. We've talked about health and doctors, emotions and stress, sentence stress and meaning, making polite complaints, conditionals and regrets, giving reviews, connected speech, travel vocabulary, persuasion, numbers, and even some slang. That is a lot of input. I hope your brain is buzzing with new English. I want to finish this section with a thought on how to handle misunderstandings. Even at B2 level, you will not understand everything. It is impossible. The difference between a good learner and a struggling learner is how they handle not understanding. Do you panic? Do you stop listening? Or do you use strategies? A great strategy is asking for clarification. Instead of just saying, "What?" which can sound rude, use phrases like, "Sorry, could you repeat that?" Or "I didn't catch that last part." Or, "Do you mean?" And then repeat what you think you heard. This checks your understanding and keeps the conversation flowing. It shows you are an active participant. Remember, communication is the goal, not perfection. If you use the wrong tense, but the person understands you, that is a success. If you don't know a word, but you can describe it, that is called circumlocution. That is a huge success. For example, if you forget the word for wrench, you can say the metal tool you use to turn nuts and bolts. Being able to talk around a word is a sign of high fluency. To finish strong today, I want to guide you through a visualization exercise. This is a powerful technique not just for relaxation, but for practicing future tenses and descriptive language. I want you to close your eyes if you are in a safe place to do so, or just stare at a blank wall and let your imagination take over. We are going to project ourselves 5 years into the future. Imagine you are waking up in your dream home. It is a bright, sunny morning. Look around the room. What do you see? Perhaps there are large windows letting in the sunlight. You walk to the kitchen. What can you smell? Maybe the aroma of fresh coffee or baking bread. You are living your ideal life. Think about where you are living. Are you in a bustling city with skyscrapers outside, or are you in a quiet countryside cottage surrounded by green fields? Take a moment to visualize the details. Now, let's think about your English skills in this future. In 5 years, your English is fluent. You are confident. Imagine a specific scene. You are at a dinner party with international friends. Everyone is laughing and talking. You tell a joke, and everyone understands it perfectly. You don't have to translate in your head anymore. The words just flow. How does that feel? You feel proud, relaxed, and connected. You are discussing a complex topic, maybe politics or philosophy, and you are expressing your nuanced opinions with ease. You use phrases like, "I tend to agree with that perspective," or "That is a fascinating point of view." In this future, English is not a barrier. It is a bridge to new opportunities. This visualization uses the future continuous tense. You will be living, you will be speaking. This tense describes ongoing actions in the future. It is great for painting a picture of a future life. Keep that image in your mind. Whenever you feel frustrated with your studies, return to that image. It will motivate you. Now let's shift back to some practical vocabulary. Let's talk about technology and our digital lives. This is a topic that connects us all. We spend so much time on our phones and computers. But are we using the right vocabulary to describe this digital existence? For example, when you are looking through Instagram or Facebook, what verb do you use? Many people say, I am watching Instagram. This is not quite right. We usually say, I am scrolling through social media. The verb scroll describes the physical action of moving your finger up the screen. What happens when an app stops working? It glitches, or it freezes. These are very common verbs. If your computer is running slowly, you might say it is lagging. Lagging means there is a delay between your action and the computer's response. These are precise words that native speakers use daily. If you call tech support and you say, my computer is lagging, they understand exactly what you mean. If you say, my computer is bad, it is too vague. Let's talk about passwords. We all have too many of them. If you forget your password, you have to reset it. But be careful with the pronunciation. The noun is a record, with the stress on the first syllable, but the verb is to record, with the stress on the second syllable. However, in the phrase reset, the word is just reset. We also talk about cybersecurity. We need to be careful about phishing scams. Phishing, spelled with a PH, is when hackers try to trick you into giving them your password by sending fake emails. It sounds like fishing, like catching fish. It is a metaphor. Being tech-savvy means you know how to use technology well. If you are not tech-savvy, you might struggle with the latest gadgets. Let's move on to a slightly more formal area, the language of meetings and decision-making. Even if you are not a business person, you will find yourself in situations where a group needs to make a decision. Maybe planning a family holiday or deciding where to go for dinner with friends. Meetings have their own register. They often start with, "Shall we get down to business?" This means let's start the serious discussion. When you want to give your opinion in a group, phrases like "I reckon" are very common in British and Australian English. "I reckon we should go to the Italian place." It is less formal than "I think." In a business meeting, you might hear phrases like "the bottom line is." This idiom refers to the final profit in accounting, but in conversation, it means the most important point or the final result. So the bottom line is, we need to save money. When you want to interrupt someone politely in a meeting, you don't just stop them. You use a phrase like, "Sorry to interrupt, but I just wanted to say," or "Could I just add something here?" These softeners are crucial for maintaining good relationships. Interrupting without these phrases can seem aggressive. Listening for these phrases in a debate or discussion helps you follow the flow of the conversation. You will hear a lot of back-channeling too. Back-channeling is when the listener makes small sounds like "uh-huh, right," or "I see," to show they are listening. In a podcast like this, I can't hear you back-channel, but when you are speaking to real people, nodding and saying "right" is an important part of the interaction. Now, I want to focus on a tricky pair of words that often get confused: say, tell, speak, and talk. These are all similar, but we use them with different grammatical structures. You tell a story. You tell a joke. You tell the truth. You tell someone to do something. Notice that tell usually has a personal object after it. You tell someone something. On the other hand, you say a word. You say a sentence. You say something. Say does not usually take a person object immediately after it. You don't say him to go, you tell him to go. You say that he should go. This is a subtle but important distinction. Speak and talk are often interchangeable. They are more informal. I spoke to him about the problem, I talked to him about the problem. However, speak can sound slightly more formal. Can I speak to the manager? Sounds more serious than can I talk to the manager? Also, we use speak for languages. I speak English. We do not say I talk English. Getting these collocations right makes your English sound much more polished. Let's try a listening scenario involving a misunderstanding, which is very common when using these verbs. Imagine a boss says to an employee, "Did you tell the client about the delay?" The employee says, "No, I just said it to my colleague." Here, the employee is making a distinction. They didn't communicate directly to the client using tell. They just mentioned it to a colleague using said. The choice of verb changes the meaning of who received the information. Now let's tackle one of the most difficult sounds in English for many learners, the schwa sound. If you want to sound natural, you must master the schwa. It is the laziest sound in the language. It is an unstressed, neutral sound, like a grunt. It is represented by the symbol in dictionaries. It sounds like, ugh. We use the schwa in almost every sentence. It appears in unstressed syllables and function words like to, for, at, and, the. For example, the word about. We don't say about, we say about. The first a is a schwa. The word banana. The stress is on the second syllable. The first and last a's are schwas. Bu-na-nu. It is not banana. Why is this important for listening? Because native speakers swallow sounds. When I say I am going to go to the store, it sounds like I'm going to go to the store. To becomes to. The becomes the. A becomes a. If you listen for the full pronunciation, you will miss it. The schwa is the rhythm of English. It allows the stressed syllables to stand out. Try to say the word comfortable again. Comfortable. The middle is a schwa. Chocolate, chocolate, not chocolate. The middle vowel disappears into the schwa. Listen for this lazy sound. It is everywhere. Let's move on to a fun topic, food and cooking. We all eat, and talking about food is a universal icebreaker. But beyond saying delicious, what else can we say? We can talk about texture. Is the food crunchy? That means it makes a noise when you bite it, like a raw carrot or a crisp. Is it tender? That means meat is soft and easy to chew. Is it soggy? That is negative. It means it is wet and limp, like French fries that have been sitting out too long. We also use specific verbs for cooking. You don't just make a cake, you bake a cake. You don't just make a steak, you fry or grill a steak. You boil pasta in water. You steam vegetables. These verbs change based on the method. If you invite someone for dinner and they ask, "What are you cooking?" You can say, "I am roasting a chicken with roasted vegetables." It sounds much more appetizing than "I am making chicken." And what about taste? We have sweet, sour, salty, and bitter, but we also have spicy or hot. Be careful with hot. It can mean temperature or spiciness. If you want to be clear, say spicy. If a dish is perfectly balanced, you can say it is flavorful or savory. Savory usually means salty or spicy, not sweet. If you don't like the food, you can use polite phrases we discussed earlier, or you can say, "It's a bit too salty for my taste." Let's talk about the cultural aspect of dining. In many English-speaking countries, tipping is customary. It is not just a bonus, it is expected. If you are in the U.S., you are expected to leave around 15 to 20% of the bill as a tip for the server. Not doing so is considered very rude, as servers rely on tips for their income. In the UK, it is a bit different. Often a service charge is added automatically. Understanding these cultural norms is part of language proficiency. You need to know what to say when the bill comes. Can we have the bill, please? Or, check, please. In the UK, they say bill. In the US, they often say check. Now, I want to briefly discuss polite refusals. We talked about agreeing, but what about when you are invited to something you don't want to do? Maybe a friend invites you to a party, but you are tired. A direct no is too harsh. You need to decline politely. The structure is, thank you, / that sounds great, plus, but plus, reason plus refusal. For example, thanks for the invite. That sounds like a fun party, but I have actually made other plans for that night. Or, I would love to come, but I am feeling a bit under the weather, so I am going to stay in. Using I would love to, but softens the blow significantly. It shows you appreciate the invitation even if you cannot accept it. This is social intelligence in English. Let's do a final quick recap of some of the major points we have covered in this mega episode. We started with small talk and the weather, using question tags. We moved on to health, describing symptoms like a dull ache or a sharp pain. We explored narrative tenses through storytelling. We discussed the difference between stressed and stressful. We learned how to complain politely using the passive voice. We mastered the second and third conditional for hypothetical situations and regrets. We tackled phrasal verbs, idioms like ghosting and piece of cake. We practiced listening for the schwa sound, sentence stress, and connected speech. We covered tech vocabulary, food descriptions, and polite refusals. That is a massive amount of progress. I want to leave you with one final thought on the process of learning. Learning a language is like climbing a mountain. You start at the bottom and the path is steep. Sometimes you trip. Sometimes the weather is bad. But every step you take, you get higher. And the view gets better. Right now, you are at the B2 level. You are halfway up the mountain. The air is clearer. You can see the summit. It is still hard work, but you have never been this high before. Look back at where you started. Celebrate that progress. Do not get discouraged by what you don't know yet. Focus on what you can do today that you couldn't do yesterday. Maybe today you learned the word schwa. Maybe today you finally understood the third conditional. That is a victory. Be proud of it. Thank you so much for listening to this special extended episode of English in Advance. It has been a true pleasure spending this time with you. I hope you feel your listening skills have had a real workout today. Remember, you can listen to this episode again and again. Repetition is the mother of retention. Listen while you cook, while you drive, or while you walk the dog. Let the rhythm of English become the soundtrack of your life. If you enjoyed this session, please remember to subscribe and share this podcast with a friend who is also learning English. Your support keeps this channel going. Leave a review and tell me what your favorite new word was from today. I read every single one. Until next time, keep listening, keep speaking, and keep advancing your English. This is Jessica, signing off. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Goodbye.